Hey everybody, it's Mike Myers and Richard Chapman, and welcome to Two Ball Nerds. We've got a very interesting conversation I want to have. And Richard, you'll notice that there is a new button on your keyboard. It's called Smite. Okay, so if I go off on too crazy of a tangent, just press the Smite button. All right, and I'll return back to my normal scheduled self. But
I don't have that key, Mike. There's no Smite button on my keyboard.
No, it's called Alt F4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I can do that. Alt F4. Got it.
Anyway, one of the things that was always interested in me getting involved with CyberNow Labs is that, I mean, literally the thing when we're talking about SOCs, we're talking about monitoring, right? I mean, you're monitoring stuff from the comfort of your chair. You have agents and other different types of tools that are out there on your network that's phoning home and telling you about things, right?
Yeah.
And so monitoring in the network, obviously, there's no argument that that's important. But as an old network guy, one of the things that I was curious about is so many of the tools that we use at CyberNow Labs, what you guys call the engineering. How do you set it up? Where do you place the agents and all that so that they can phone home and tell you when naughtinesses are taking place? So that from the comfort of your chair, you can let us know. And number one, I think one of the big surprises I had was the first time I said this to you, Richard, and you're like, oh, well, that's an engineering thing. I am like, what is this engineering of which you speak? I must know. And
I'm pretty sure that's exactly how you said it too.
Yes, but then you talk like this, goose and crazy squirrel. But I thought it was very interesting, because I think I'm more of a screwdriver type of tech than most people. I want to get underneath everything. But to literally all the monitoring tools weren't even discussed. That's almost like it's a separate career, doing the engineering for SOC analysis. So anyway, the bottom line is one of the questions I asked you, gosh, probably a year ago when we first started working together was, well, what type of protocols are you guys using for monitoring? When I assumed that we used good old simple network management protocol, or SNMP. SNMP, folks, has been around since the early 90s, late 80s, I'm not even sure. And it has been a tool set that it was the first, and in many cases, the only protocol that allowed you to talk to your switches and your routers and your systems. And it was the first time that a lot of us saw where we would have one piece of software, some type of monitoring software that would take all this information coming from all these different things, and we could make charts and graphs and stuff with it. And that was SNMP. It seems to me everybody, when they're talking about Network Plus and CompTIA Security Plus, they're always like, what are the questions? And of course, what version of SNMP got good security? And that's SNMP version 3. And then what are the port numbers? Richard, by any chance, do you know your SNMP port numbers?
161 and 162.
Very
definitely
good.
Definitely something you got to know for, kind of basic, network knowledge and so forth, right?
It is. And then on
Security
top
Plus
of
test.
Yeah, don't forget we have secure SNMP too, and that's going to be port number, 10161, 10162. There you go. You've passed your CompTIA questions on SNMP. but the more important issue that I ran into with SNMP is, and you started this, Richard, it's all your fault. As I started asking around, I go, if people are not using SNMP, which is what I was hearing, that SNMP is old and all this stuff, what are they using? And the answer is that a lot of times it depends on whatever your monitoring tool is. And right now we're in a world where it's kind of vendor specific. So if you're going to be using a particular endpoint tool or something like that, you're just going to plug in their agent and make sure to keep whatever ports that particular person wants open and ready to go, which I thought was interesting, So in my opinion, Richard, what I'm going to have to say is that I think SNMP is dying. I don't think any of the tools that you guys teach at CyberNow Labs uses SNMP. Do they? Are you?
No.
Yeah.
No, not particularly. I mean, it's definitely on the way out. Even applications like Op Manager, which can give us live notifications about devices as to whether they're up or functioning, downtime, all that fun stuff. I don't believe that most of that is actually using SNMP anymore. I think you can actually add a device into Op Manager utilizing SNMP protocol, but I don't think it actually functions on that primarily.
Well, so I'm going to go out on a branch. I'm going to say SNMP is like the VI of network management. All right.
Okay.
Can you use the VI editor, text editor?
No, I've never used it.
Oh, I VI or Vim. What, just nightmare text editors. However, the reason I made myself learn them is because I knew I could walk up to almost any Linux system, and if I had nothing else, I had that as a text editor. And I think
Okay.
there's a parallel with SNMP, and that is, Richard, you'd be hard pressed to come up with a network device, any switch, any router, any WAP, any whatever you want, any operating system that doesn't have SNMP built in and ready to rock and roll.
Right.
And especially if I'm in a smaller network that lacks a lot of the more sophisticated monitoring tools, and I've got to light something up. I've got, as you know, I'm getting network broadcasts. I don't know where it's coming from. It's relatively easy for me to get into a switch, for example, light up SNMP, and use some third-party tool, PRTG, SolarWinds, something like that, to do quick and dirty monitoring.
So is SNMP like remember when we still had the carbon swipe machines for the credit card? You had them just sitting there just in case your phone line wouldn't connect to verify your credit card. You could still, use that swipe, oh gosh, I forget what they used to call the machine, the credit card machine, where you set the credit card machine and roll it over and it had the carbon copy of it.
I'm just having fun watching you stumble right there, man. I was going to sit there and go, why no, Richard? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Just to get me to go a little longer, huh?
Yes. So I'll let you have that one. The old imprinters. Yeah, I remember those things. But yeah, so
like a backup.
I wouldn't even say, like, a backup implies that it's ready to go. You know what I mean? So for me, SNMP, if I found myself in a problem situation, I'd have to be setting it up from the beginning. I'd have to get into the switch, and then of course that assumes the switch is working enough for me to get to it. I would have to, check the MIB, the management information base, whatever it's called, and then I'd have to go in and decide, number one, what are the variables I want to get. You got to remember, SNMP is based on the old X.509 protocol. You've seen this stuff like in a Windows registry where it's like, 3.7.44 dash ... and that's that old X.509 formatting. So I'm old. So, I mean, I used SNMP from the beginning. It's like somebody who is really good on a Cisco router. They're like, why would you want to use anything other than iOS? It's like, well, because you've got it memorized, dude. That doesn't mean everybody else does. So I'm going to go ahead and declare SNMP is if it isn't, I don't want to say it's dead, but it's getting nichey now. And SNMP for monitoring is still a great tool. You would never be able to find a device or a piece of software that you could not turn SNMP on for. The later versions of SNMP have good security. But the bottom line is that there's better stuff for configuration. And I think that's where SNMP really fell down, is the same pipeline upon which you manage and monitor something. Let me say that better. The same pipeline upon which you monitor something is often the same pipeline that you're going to use to configure something. And that SNMP is weak in configuration, mainly because of database issues with X509 and stuff like that. Not that anything's insurmountable, but on the monitoring side, SNMP works great. It's very light compared to, say, WMI or other protocols like that. So it doesn't take up hardly any bandwidth. And so as soon as we say it's dead, I say another situation comes up, which brings it back to life.
You think so?
SNMP is dead. Long live SNMP.
That's kind of like somebody saying, man, the best videotapes were old beta tapes, and I'm gonna keep my beta player till the end of time, just because they're gonna
Don't
come
get me,
back.
don't get me started. I work really hard. I literally, and I can say this with humility, I have forgotten far more than I know. And that's just part and parcel of being in the world of IT.
All right.
All right,
well,
folks,
maybe
this is
one-
Richard Chapman and Mike Myers, Two Bald Nerds saying bye. We'll catch you on the next one. Be good. If you like Two Bald Nerds, check out our entire playlist right here. It's a lot of fun. We'll see you there.